Hello, we're looking here at Interpol's second album, Antics. So Interpol are I guess what we'd call a indie-ish post-punk alt-rock band. At least they were. I haven't actually heard anything off their last two albums, so for all I know, they've gone a completely different direction. But certainly in the early 2000s, I guess that's where we would place them in the genre files. And so this was released in 2004, and this is a secondhand copy. You can see it has some sticker peelings here. Can't remember exactly where I bought this. The sticker peeling makes me think I got it from a secondhand music store over in the city, and it probably would have cost me about $4-ish, but I may be wrong on that. Can't imagine I spent more than $4. I used to own this brand new, when it first came out in 2004, 2005. As with so many of my CDs, I lost it or sold it or something like that. But that's okay because I've rebought it now. So when this came out, we probably just a little bit of background. So they came out with Turn on the Bright Lights in 2001, I believe. And when that came out, I thought they were okay, and I liked the song Obstacle 1. I think it's Obstacle 1, Obstacle 2. Obstacle 1, and it's got the kind of dueling guitars. Did it, did it, did it. And I thought, which many people wrote when they first arrived on the scene and they were talked about and reviewed, people compared Paul Banks, the vocalist, vocals to Ian Curtis from Joy Division, and they kind of said he's ripping him off, or they're a Joy Division ripoff, which I thought was, maybe I bought into that a little bit, but now in hindsight, I think that's a little unfair. Even on that first record, he does have a baritone kind of voice, but maybe his delivery is a little Ian Curtis-ish. But beyond that, I don't think they're actually particularly Joy Division. They're certainly not ripping off Joy Division. There's, as in any band, post-punk band, and especially in the kind of early 2000s New York scene, is who wasn't at least somewhat influenced by Joy Division. They're one of the most influential bands of the last 40, 50 years. But I wouldn't dismiss them entirely as a Joy Division clone or rip-off on that first album. I think they had their own sound. Certainly by the second album, I really think they'd moved away in a different direction from anything that you would just cast them as Joy Division rip-offs. But I kind of liked that first album when it first came out. And then when this came out, I heard the singles, and I think the first single was Slow Hands, and I was kind of like, I didn't really take much notice of it. And then the girl who I was with at that time, she really liked them, and she was kind of what got me into them, I think. And then through her, I really started listening to them a lot. And then I think Evil was the second single, which is the one that starts off with Rosemary, which some people say is a song about Rosemary and Fred West, the British serial killers. I don't know if that's true. Anyway, you can see they use Morse code. The members of this band at this time were this drummer, Sam, I think Fogarino, some kind of Italianish sounding name. Fogarino. The lead guitarist, Daniel Kessler. Let's see if I can find him. That's not him. Maybe that's him. No, that's him, I'm pretty sure. The vocalist, Paul Banks, which I think that's him. You can really tell, it's a bloody silhouette, isn't it? And the bass player, Carlos Dengler, who has subsequently quit the band. And I think he was responsible for a lot of the songwriting, more than I would have imagined for a bass player, because after he left, I think they lost. Well, the stuff they'd made, like I said, I haven't listened to their last two albums, but the ones immediately after he left, I don't know, they weren't as good in my opinion. So maybe Carlos Dengler had a lot to do with this. I don't know. You know, it's often hard to find where, you know, to as a fan to know how much each person writes, because usually they just say all music written by Interpol, and it's rare that they'll kind of divide it up. I guess they do that in private with publishing. I don't know, but anyway, you see here they use the black plastic backing. I was thinking last night, you know, when CDs first came out in the 1980s, and I'd say for the first half of the 1990s, they used black plastic backing, but it was matte black. It wasn't shiny. And then they went to kind of clear plastic backing so that you could see the back inlay art. They could, you know, have that option if they wanted. And everything, the clear plastic became the big thing. And then every now and then they would go back, some bands would use the black plastic again in the backing, but not the matte black with the grooves here, just shiny gloss black. Interesting stuff, I know, talking about the goddamn plastic on a CD. But I noticed these things as time progresses, how the cases changed. And also the plastic they used on the front window of the case, how they seemingly improved the process of plastic, because some of those old ones, not just because they're old, but just because the plastic was quite foggy. It wasn't like glass. It became like quite smoky after a time, and it wasn't just because of the age. It was the kind of plastic they were using. As for the music on this album, 7 minutes in, I think it's a pretty solid album. Next Exit starts off slow and sounds quite like their previous album. Then they get to the Evil, which I said was one of the singles, which you've probably heard. Narc, Take You on a Cruise. Take You on a Cruise is a great song. Now, I saw these guys live in 2005. They came to Auckland and played at the St. James Theatre, I remember. And I was really impressed with their live show. To the point they are still one of the best live bands I've ever seen. And mate, yeah, seeing a live band often is to do with the mood you're in and the age you're at. Because, you know, a lot of the concerts I went to, like Slayer or something, it's enjoyable when you're a teenager or a young man, you know, getting smashed around and headbanging and whatnot. But if I went in and did that to a Slayer show, not that they'd just get together anymore, but if they were together, I went to a Slayer show now at my age, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much, because I'm just not interested in as much in that kind of energy in the live sphere, if you know what I mean. So I think a lot of times, unless the band is really bad, a lot of how we feel about live performance is to do with our own thing, our own trip, where we are in our life and the mood we're in on that particular day. But when I saw them, I would have been in my early 20s, I really was really impressed with their live show. I enjoyed it a lot. And one of the songs, memories I have, is of that song, Take You on a Cruise. Slow Hands, Not Even Jail. That was another one at the live show. If you ever listen to that song, Not Even Jail, there's this part in the middle where the drums and the bass stop, and there's the guitar. I think the lead guitar, Daniel Kessler, plays this two-note for about 30 seconds. And I remember at the live show, it was like a really atmospheric feeling. It was like with the lights and everything, I remember closing my eyes and just, it was like a wave washing over you of that guitar sound of the two notes. It was quite like, a beautiful thing. It's like a very vivid memory I have of a live musical show, because often you forget things and you kind of just hold on to these snatches of particular parts in a song or something, and that's one part of a song I still remember to this day. And when I listen to it, I can kind of remember that. Public Pervert, that's a great song. That's a song I've learnt on guitar. Chimera was also a single. And then those last two, Length of Love, A Time to Be So Small, they're not bad, but I find often with albums, by the time they get to the end, they're kind of putting some of their filler there. But those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 songs, solid album. I'd give it a good 8 out of 10, this album. So after this, they released Our Love to Admire, which is a good album. Not as good as Antics, in my opinion, but a good album. Then they released their self-titled, which is when Carlos left. Now they apparently they wrote it with Carlos Dengler, but he left once it was written and recorded. He left. He didn't want anything to do with the album promotion or the tour or anything like that. And if you've seen a picture of him now, he became an actor. Well, he went into acting, and I followed him on Twitter for a while. I don't think he's still active, but it's like he completely. I don't know what happened to him during the musical part of his life, because if you remember his image when he was in Interpol, he was like almost like neo-goth, like a creation from a Tim Burton movie. Like he wore like these all black boots, leather boots up to his knees, over the top of his pants, and like a holster thing. Almost kind of looked like his like semi German military from the 1930s, if you know what I mean, like the kind of look. And then it was hair. He had the kind of like dyed black hair over and a side parting, very pallid white skin, and his bass was slung very low when he played live. It really had the whole image going on. A lot of people loved him. A lot of girls liked him. A big rock star thing going on. And then Our Love to Admire, he changed his image quite a lot. He went with the bolo tie, I remember. And then since then, when you see him nowadays, he's almost unrecognizable. And when he doesn't like to talk about Interpol. And maybe that's because he wants to kind of forge his own path as an actor. But it's what he has seen, what I have read and seen him talk about it. It's almost like he feels, I don't know, he kind of went through a bad period, almost like kind of had a bit of a breakdown or a crisis, an existential crisis. And that's why he left music and completely went in a new direction. And he doesn't like to remember or think or talk about that time. And I might be wrong. Maybe that I've cherry picked one article or one interview, and that's not representative. And maybe he's changed now, because like I said, I don't think he's active on Twitter anymore. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how because like I said, I think he wrote a lot of the music. He was responsible for a lot of the music. The album after he left, not the one he was involved with, but I mean the one that he had nothing to do with, I think it was El Pintor. I think that was after that. And I listened to that one. But then after, then I kind of lose track of them after that. I'm not sure if they're still with Matador either. I think they've left Matador. So yes, El Pintor was. So that's 2014. Yeah, since that, they've had Marauder and The Other Side of Make Believe. Those are the two albums I've not heard. El Pintor, it didn't capture me at all. There was nothing on that album. On the 4 first albums, even if it wasn't a great album, there were still usually songs that I liked. But from when I was listening through that album, it was just like, it just did nothing for me whatsoever. And after I kind of, I guess, gave up on them kind of. And I haven't heard anything from the subsequent 2 most recent albums. So they've also haven't replaced Carlos with a permanent bass player. They have like touring bass players, but they don't have a permanent, replacement for him. And yeah, maybe that's why the music subsequently hasn't hit me as much. Maybe it was Carlos that was I was most impressed with. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys.